said, hey guys, do you want a beer? Just a little motivates a little health.
And then with like Barney on the bus.
That's why there's a world champion.
Mic check, hack check.
Hey Fight fans, welcome back to the channel. I'm very excited to have Ian Janse van Rensburg on the channel. Ian is a former Special Forces operator and a mental coach for none other than the UFC middleweight champion of the world, Dricus du Plessis. I'm very interested to pick your brain today, Ian. Well, firstly, welcome, actually, getting a bit ahead of myself. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you.
I'm very interested to pick your brain on a whole host of things, but I think before we get a little bit deeper into mentality and things like that, maybe just for the viewers, could you give us a bit of an introduction and maybe sort of a history of your time in combat and things like that, and then how you went to into what you do today?
Okay. Now, I started my military career in 1988. Became an officer in the infantry school, was posted to a battalion called 3-2 Battalion in the Caprivi Strip. We brought 3-2 Battalion down to Pomfret with all that, what happened, if you guys remember. And from there, I did my Special Forces selection. And after my qualification in 1993, I was posted to 5 Special Forces Regiment in Palaborwa. So I've spent my time there until about 96, and I got transferred as a research and development officer and still operational to Pretoria. Front end loader took me off my mountain bike in 99, had an open femur fracture, got badly damaged. And I started my healing process then, did a bodyguard job of all for a guy with the name of Dr. Bob Bays, and he introduced me to NLP. And I had a bit of a cripple walk, and after I've done actually a bodyguard job for him, he actually did something with NLP and I lost my limb. And I was like, I need to know this. And I studied NLP while I was still in the military, and I got a transfer to the medical health services to present battle handling there. So I was an instructor as a lieutenant colonel there, and I left the military after that as an instructor and a lieutenant colonel. And after that, I actually opened up my own practice doing coaching. And then I studied specialized kinesiology. And that actually became a very big part and parcel of my stuff, and also did some temple art and sacred sexual healing. So that actually made up my package. And then from there on, I actually just started to do my mental coaching and clients, working with all kinds of people. And I got involved with Fight Fit Militia about in 2008-9, started coaching Gareth, Chef, and Costa and the guys there, and that was actually my introduction into the MMA field and mental coaching.
Yeah, you mentioned Fight Fit Militia. We spoke about it a little bit previously, but you and Neil actually, with your Fight Fit Militia coaching, you actually hold a win over Dricus, and then a win for Dricus. You're probably the only people in the world that have been able to do that.
True. Yes.
Just as a little side note.
Yes.
But tell me now, so some of the principles. I've got it here: hybrid learning, hybrid living, clean language, and special forces mentality. Can you tell me a little bit more about each of those and how you developed them?
Yes, I developed a program expression blueprint, and with the hybrid, like MMA, the modules which is in there is kinesiology, which is muscle testing, and working with Chinese energy, the whole Chinese system with energy. Then also with the clean language, it's just a system which was developed about 20 odd years ago from NLP, which goes about we ask someone questions, it goes into a metaphor, and there's a process you actually follow. So a lot of the work we do, we're actually doing according to that process. And then from the military side is since I've been instructing on mobile warfare, specifically with NLP in mind and MMA in mind, there's a lot of overlapping about how a mobile warfare go about and how MMA works. So out of that, I actually developed a system then for fighters and businessmen to actually coach them from my point of view.
Oh, that's awesome. And obviously, yeah, like you said, there's a lot of parallels that can be drawn between, obviously to a lesser extent in MMA, but, combat and MMA. Is it weird for you that more people, or maybe they do, I just haven't seen many in MMA, but more athletes in MMA aren't making use of this kind of thing? Because we've seen it previously with a variety of people like Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods. I think they made use of, maybe to also again to a lesser extent, someone like Tony Robbins, just to get their mind right. Is it odd for you that there's like that, or are people making use of it and I'm just not aware of it? Because when I first heard, when I met you, and one of Neil's other students, Kieran, was like, yeah, he does mentality coaching for Dricus. I was like, it makes sense, but I never thought about it, and I would think that more people would make use of it, but they don't seem to be doing it. Is it weird for you?
The whole thing, it's actually quite an interesting subject, and I think, and it's my personal opinion around the South African culture, because even in the military, if we talk about psychologists coming in, you feel like there must be something wrong with you. We don't want to talk to psychologists. And I think the sport coaching is very closely related to like sport psychology. And that's why a lot of guys, sometimes when they ask for help or mental coaching around that, a lot of people view that as you're weak or there's something wrong, which is actually not the case. And that's what's so beautiful even about Dricus, because if you look at his mentality, if you look at his understanding around things, it's like really up there. And all we're basically doing is to, with my expertise, going there and enhance it. So there's no therapy or anything we actually do. And I actually don't even do coaching. I've got a system I call the CIA system, where you confide with someone, and out of that confiding, then you go and you talk about this to get insight, like what the hell is going on? How's it working? Oh, I didn't think of that. And once you actually get the insight, then you can go over and say, right, let's put it into action. So it's actually far removed from thinking that you come for a psychological session or you get therapy. And I think that's why a lot of people actually steer away from that, because they feel maybe their mentality and that they're okay as a person. But that's not the case if you look about how we go about.
So what exactly do you and Dricus do? Obviously, without giving too much away and everything. So what is he? Are you just reinforcing things for him? Or, does he come to you? Is it a situation where he comes to you and says, listen, I've got to worry about this. Like, how do we overcome this? Like, what do you guys actually do in your sessions?
I closely work with Neil Geyser. And also when Dricus would sign a fight, we know who the opponent is. And then from there, they start working on a game plan around his striking and his ground game and whatever they need to do there. And then what happens is that Dricus would talk to me around, listen, this is the plan. And then I take it out of a military perspective to go like, oh, okay, this is a typical mobile warfare situation where someone might be going into defense. And then we actually start talking about, out of my perception, what can be done on a mental level to actually support the fight plan. And out of that, we work with the expression blueprint I've sent to you, and you're welcome to actually post it. And then we actually look and say like, right, what's our goal here? And then we actually go and see we need to be in flow. How are we going to do that? And then the 7-step program I've done with him. So we use that as a framework to go like, where do you need to have an impact on that? What must the mindset be? What must you do on an energy level with the opponent? So then we actually start sharing information and actually bringing it together that if you want to say body, mind and spirit is congruent with the fight plan, the physical plan, and looking out of a military viewpoint out of it to go like, oh, this is sound. It's like really a sound plan. And then he just like absorb it like you won't believe and actually go and execute. So that's basically how our sessions go about.
Okay, so like you would with a fight plan, you've maybe got 30 different tools. Now you're trying to find the way to go and get the 10 tools that you need and really optimize the way forward and really, like you say, balance the energy to go and do the most optimal thing. But now as well from a mentality standpoint, have I got that right?
Yes. Yeah, and then typically my job is a lot of time you actually heard it obviously before, people say, oh, they want to fight and flow. Now, there's a lot being written in the psychological field and everything, but what you would find is most people would tell you what flow is. But there's really very little literature and people who can tell you how to get in flow. And that is something with my knowledge with the military and how you can negatively arouse and go into fight and flight and how not. I actually developed something to go like, okay, here is a pathway to actually go into flow. And I think even now with Dricus's previous fight, you can see that everything there happened in flow. His movement, the way he strike, everything. So he really got it down to the T to actually access that, let's call it flow state. And that made me very excited and happy because it was just like on from the beginning. With Adesanya at one stage, it was like up and down, and when he got it, things started happening. So that is what we are chasing and working and even learning from each other with feedback he brings to say like, oh, this worked, this didn't work, what can we add? And that's how we actually build a hybrid or integrated program for him.
100%. This last fight was definitely, I don't want to say, I hate the word flawless, but it was, in terms of flow, it was really, I mean, there wasn't really a stop-start at any stage. He dominated it from start to finish. Like you say with the Adesanya fight, I do remember in the first round particularly, he was a little bit taken back. I think it was also with the change in style from Adesanya. But if you look at the first fight in the UFC all the way through to now, it's like this is what all these pundits are picking up on now. So for you, it's probably like a good vindication. Everybody that hasn't watched him fight for a long time is now starting to pick up how much better and how he's getting in every single fight. And now we know why, to a big extent that is. I want to ask you though, in terms of actually like mindset and iron will and things like that. You and I have spoken as well before, but a lot of people, I've watched a lot of military documentaries as well, and a lot of people say this even in sports, like the body, you said it to me recently as well, the body goes first and the physical sort of gets left behind, or everybody's sort of on the same physical level, then the mentality starts to come in. Do you guys do any work in terms of strengthening his mindset in that aspect at all? And if so, like, how long have you been working together? Because his mindset is like ironclad.
Yeah, I started working with Dricus just before the Whittaker fight, and you are very right, because even in Special Forces, I was privileged to actually be on selections, marking selections, and even there you would find a guy. He comes from the paratroopers, he's an officer, he's got his degree, he's fit, he's big, And usually here in day 2 or day 3, we like arrest the guys and they do a little bit of interrogation and put some ice water and everything on them. And then a guy just decides that's it. He's done with this and he gives up. And then there's a different guy you never thought would be the guy making it. And with that kind of mentality, he just knows he needs to stay because he wants to be a special forces guy. And he pushes through. So that is where that come from. And what I found is that you get a thing like a motivation. But as soon as things goes bad or you get punched in the face, the first thing that goes is motivation. And that's why you need to back it up. And what I've seen in special forces, how necessity is. What is your necessity to be there, stay there, and do what is necessary? And that's one thing I can say about Dricus. Even when we met, we spoke about this, and I gave him a tick. That was something which was already very much part and parcel of his being. The only thing I did is to actually highlight it or actually bring it into consciousness to go like, oh, that is what it is. But that's one thing about him, his necessity. Going into fights where he's going now with defending the belt, staying the best. You cannot fault him that you think it's only a motivation. There's a lot behind it, and his package is really completed. And like I said, I just shared my viewpoint on it, and he goes, "Oh yes, we know that." And yes, so we still go and visit it, but there's no actual work to be done. Some of the other fighters I work with, I introduce to the system. And talk about necessity and that your necessity must be greater than that you need to overcome. And I'm also a TACFIT instructor. Many years ago, I did Scott Sonnen's TACFIT course, and that's one of Scott Sonnen's big thing in Sambo, that they talk about you have to have obviously a why or motivation doing Sambo. But at the end of the day, what's your necessity to stay there? In a Sambo community, it's very much your family, your friends, your comrades around you. And so everybody actually develops like a necessity.
I think you're 100%. Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the Derek Brunson fight, that first round, not being able to breathe and still pushing through, I think that kind of says everything about his mentality right there. I wanted to ask you one thing because again, when we met, it was at Neil's house, and Neil had the Black Belt Tears mug, and I looked at the mug and I was like, oh yeah, Kieran wanted to make one for me, but I'm not ready yet. And both of you looked at me like I'd lost my mind for saying that. But I said to you, I think I said to Neil and to you at the same time, like, I'm all for the mentality, of everything is possible, but at the same time, for me, I didn't want to come across as maybe arrogant or delusional. Arrogant, not so much. I mean, that's part of it, but maybe like delusional. Like, is there a time where with your clients at all, because can't, I mean, I don't know, can't's not in the vocabulary with you, is it?
No, no, definitely not.
So how do you draw the line? Because like with Dricus, for example, now his mom said, "Oh, do you want to be a world champion?" Not after performance like that. I can't remember in which fight it was. How do you balance between not wanting to say, "Oh well, I can't do that," and maybe taking a step back and say, "Okay, let's be real, and this needs to change, that needs to change."
I'm very much, and I can give you even an example of that, and that's why it's so very important to check how you set up your intentions and your goals. A while back, I've worked with another fighter, and I used the example because I roll with Neil Geyser on Thursdays. We have a time for rolling, and I told him, if I just go and say my goal is next Thursday to go in there and tap Neil Geyser. That's my goal. What do you think is going to happen to me? I'm 55. He's 42. He's a third-degree black belt. I'm a purple belt. I'm crippled. He's super fit. So actually, before I even start that intention going there, I'm so deeply in trouble with what I just set my up, and then you can like do your little prayers or say a mantra. You're in trouble there. But by taking that intention and say, okay, I roll with Neil Geyser on Thursday. I am going to give him my absolute special forces mentality and give him a go. If I look at that and I go like, can I give him a go? Oh yes, I can. And with my mentality, I will absolutely do what is necessary and most probably still get that. And but the whole thing is I'm much more comfortable with my second statement in doing it than with the first one. So it's very important for me when you set out the intention that it's not only believable, it must actually resonate with you, that you can have the correct perception about doing it, and then you can go in and do it. And the other day, Neil even said, if I go in with that kind of mentality, I might even get the tap. But to go in there and think I'm going to give him a hiding, it's far removed from the truth. And I hope I answer you, but that's the way we actually have a look and see how you set up intentions around.
Definitely. Okay. And then you would probably put, I mean, if your intention is to tap him, then you would probably just end up having to then put the steps in place, because you've got your end goal and then you've got your starting point and you've got your steps in between, and then also a timeline. That would be a more realistic way to have a look at it. But I remember when I said to Neil at that time, I think he said this. He said, well, you're better off having that mindset of you can do it versus not having the mindset of not being able to do it, because if you've got that mindset of not being able to do it, you're not going to do it anyway. Either you think you can or you can't, and you're right. You could be right in both instances.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the whole thing around that is even on the expression blueprint I've sent you, you actually, with your perception, sit at a point where if you go and you have a desire, it's a single point focus. I am going to execute that game plan. And what that does, as soon as you have that single point desire, I can get excited about it. But if you look at the model, if I go like, I don't know if I'm going to do this, I might be able, but I'm not sure if I can keep up. If you start talking like that, you actually put yourself into a double mind. And it's that double-mindedness who will actually, instead of triggering excitement, will trigger an emotional state of, oh, I'm in trouble. And that's why we always have a look to say, like, if you do something, do it single-mindedness and really get excited about what you're about to do, because your chances there to go into the flow state or in a peak expression is much higher than doubling in emotional turmoil. You get unstable, you trigger fright and flight. You know what happens with fright and flight. You go into tunnel vision, you actually stop thinking, and you have to go into like what you've trained the most. So that's so far removed from flow that you cannot even explain it. And that is typically why desire and excitement keeps you out of fright and flight.
Tell me, did you ever see Ido Patel that worked with Conor McGregor?
Oh yes, love him. Yes.
You know, okay. How closely related is your stuff? Because before I spoke to you, I pictured anywhere from Ido Patel to maybe to David Goggins to maybe like a mixture between everything. But now with the movement and the flow state, like Ido Patel, Conor McGregor really revolutionized the way that people think using Ido Patel. But you say you're a big fan of his.
Now, I actually picked up on Ido Portal and I actually had a look at what he's doing. And what I loved about him is mainstream have an idea about how movement, how flow, and all of that looked. And he actually totally went against all grain with that and say, but well, this is how he moves. And that's what I actually got from him. And that's why even with the work I do, a lot of people will tell you if you go into a fight, you will go into fight and flight. And I go like, you're wrong, speak for yourself. There's people there, and if you're trained, that it's not necessary if you go into a situation like that, that you have to dump adrenaline and cortisol into your system. It's not true. Because if you get into a thing, and that was so nice for me with the Whittaker fight when Dricus came in, there was a smile. And I always joke to say like, yay, we're going to get hit in the face. And that's far removed from actually being in a state of, oh, we're going to fight and it's going to be like this and adrenaline all over the place. And to come back to Ido Portal, I think he actually showed people wrong about what it really means to have flow and movement together.
Most definitely. People were making fun of it until Conor McGregor slapped Jose Aldo, and people weren't making fun of it anymore.
Everybody saw. Yeah.
Now, obviously this will be applicable to life. And are you working with any type of, you mentioned previously, but are you working with any type of like business people, everyday people? How applicable is all of this to just sort of your everyday person?
It is very applicable. I'm currently working with a group of Sanlam people, with advisors, and they are actually doing the program I've done with Dricus. They're actually doing it exactly the way, because we work with concepts. So the concepts is now turned into how do you apply it in the financial world. So yes, I have 2 financial companies I work with. I worked with pro golfers before, and some tennis players. And there's people who's just like amateur sport people who's so passionate about their sport that they are actually looking for something different like that. So we do that, and then there's people in the JITS community that is actually also making use of me for competition-wise. And I've even worked with a guy who's 13 years old and his sister of 16. So there's even younger people who actually get the opportunity now to get their mindset, or to understand how mindset fits into your physical and expression in your sport. So yes.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating topic. I'm glad we got to get sort of this is really just a brief introduction into it. I'd like to pick your brain a little bit more, maybe when I'm back in Pretoria. But yeah, I just want to say, for all of the people wondering why Dricus is such a savage mentally, this is the guy that's responsible for it. He's partly responsible for it. So all the making the fighters cry and things like that. But we'll definitely pick this up again, and I want to delve deeper into a lot more topics. But I think that's a good introduction for everybody. And thank you so much again for being on the show. And we'll definitely chat again.
Thank you very much.